Hey, friends, welcome to the Ancient Health Podcast, where East meets West. Today, I have a special friend, a man that I admire, and I mean that with all my heart, Jordan Rubin, who created Garden of Life. He is the author of, I think, 31 books. He's a New York Times bestseller. He's a friend of mine, and I'm so glad that you're on the podcast today, my friend, and we're going to talk about your new book, The Biblio Diet, but there's so many more things we want to discuss. Thank you so much for joining us today, brother.
It's great to be here, Doctor, and I'm excited to be on.
Oh, man. Okay. There are so many things, and you're so full of wisdom, and I really mean that. I do want to brag on you just for a bit. So everybody out there, whenever I talk with Jordan, and I mean that, he always has very good words, simple words, deep words. So he always is great at giving solid advice and deep introspection, and that's one thing I appreciate about your books, about what you write. I know that many times you've been on so many podcasts. I don't want to bore you with any questions, but I love people out there knowing about you as we dive in. So could you give us a brief background? Because you dealt with cancer. You went through that journey and with that battle, and you're an advocate about natural health. Could you give us a brief synopsis about your background?
Absolutely. Brief is a challenge for me, but I will be as quick as I can. I grew up in a natural health home. My dad's a chiropractor and a naturopath. And Chris, this was when natural health was anything but cool. I was made fun of, ostracized. Health food was disgusting. I have all these sort of stand-up comedic lines about what it's like to grow up in the 70s and 80s as a child of hippie health nut. And it was nothing like today. So today's fantastic. It's almost pinch myself. I can't believe natural health is cool. So I grew up in this home, and despite not having sugar in the house, despite learning principles of natural health, I didn't own them myself. I really didn't deeply believe in them. And a combination of toxicities and stress led me to developing Crohn's colitis, inflammatory bowel disease, when I was just turning 19, deathly ill. I went from 185 pounds down to 104 pounds in a wheelchair. I'm 6 feet tall, so think of someone who looks like, they say, a concentration camp survivor. If you're interested, if you go to Google Images, you can type in my name and you can look for the before picture. Now, I want to warn your audience, Chris, they might find another Jordan Rubin who writes horror films. My kids call him the bad Jordan Rubin, and his kids call me the weird Jordan Rubin, so we kind of have that going. So I was deathly ill, went to 70 medical experts because my dad had these different connections, tried every diet, read 300 books, ultimately got well by following a diet based on the Bible, proven through history and confirmed by science. After getting well, I was 21 years old, and I began to tell people about my story. I was written about in a natural health journal, which leapfrogged into me starting a company called Garden of Life, which was based on this real food movement and probiotics that we call soil-based organisms, which, once again, I was picked on, ostracized, et cetera, because every other probiotic came from dairy or it was lactobacillus. And here I am with these organisms from the soil, talking about how they rebuilt our soil microbiome and our gut. I was different than everybody else, but we ultimately saw that help thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. I wrote my first book, Patient Heal Thyself, not to just share health information, but to give people hope that if they make certain decisions and change their behavior, then their future can be better than their current situation. And ultimately, between Garden of Life and writing books and carrying this message throughout the world, I was really making an impact. And when I was ill and wanted to die every single day, I made a commitment to God. I said, God, if you can help me, heal me, and I can get well and just help one person overcome disease, or better yet, avoid it, then this living hell will all be worth it. And I'm so blessed to say, Chris, that I've been able to share this message, be a ambassador of hope, if you will. And it's still doing that today at nearly the age of 50. But in addition, you mentioned this at the outset. I haven't talked about this as much. There's been a few mentions, but during the course of me running around the world sharing this message. I was diagnosed with cancer, and not just cancer, but cancer where an oncologist said that if I don't get conventional treatment, then I have a 100% chance of dying in 90 days. Now, I'm going to crack a little joke here, but I sort of thought to myself, like, could I get 98%, like 100? Thinking this is a testimonial in the making. This was 2008, by the way. And I ended up not only sort of stopping my job at work and turning it over to a team. So I was running Garden of Life at the time, and I told the team, listen, I've been diagnosed with cancer, but I believe not only am I going to be healed, but I believe God's already healed me. You're just going to see that manifest over the next, whatever I said, 6 weeks, 12 weeks. And God did it again through natural and supernatural means. He healed me from cancer. And since that moment, which is now almost 18 years ago, I have been passionate about helping end this dreaded disease and really bring people hope that no matter how many times you're knocked down, you can get up. And I've asked God this, and I'll tell you my current prayer. I don't want to learn anymore through my own health challenges. I want to learn from books. I want to learn from friends. I want to learn from research. But you know what? I think, Chris, in life, as someone who was a patient for so long, when I would sit in as a 19-year-old in a gastroenterologist office, or maybe it was a functional medicine doctor or someone who practiced, who knows, I went to every doctor known to man, lawyer, and Indian chief, and I saw them having great diplomas and initials after their name and degrees, but I always wanted to find someone who had been sick like me and overcome and was living a healthy life. And so I decided to become that which I wanted to seek first. Become the doctor you wish you saw first. And I believe that the principles that I have been blessed to learn, practice, and share can impact someone today or someone's mom or dad. Think about this, Chris. Yesterday was Mother's Day. We're recording it on Monday after Mother's Day, this program.
Yeah.
I had to call my mom, of course, make sure my kids had cards for my wife, the usual. But I also called a few friends, texted them and said, I know this is hard for you. This is the first Mother's Day where you're without your mom. And I texted another one, hey, I know this is hard for you. I know it's been 4 years since your mom died. Oh, another friend, I know it's been hard for you. It's been 3 years. Chris, that's 3 moms, cancer, Mother's Day without your mom. And just the idea that for some of us, we get to call our mom, we get to take our wives to brunch and make sure our kids make these cards. But I'm sick. See, let me rephrase that. I like to use proper words. I'm tired and disgusted that we are losing so many loved ones to cancer and these other diseases. And I try to spend a lot of my waking hours asking God for insight and wisdom to bring people answers. And that's why I'm so excited that you're having me on the program. I've been on the program before, but not with you. So it's great to be with you. And what I love about what you do, Chris, you were in the trenches. I teach, I share, I do coach individuals, kind of friends of friends. I don't see patients, but people like yourself are the hands and feet, arms and legs and mouthpiece of what myself and Josh Axe and others do. So I do appreciate you having me. I think that what we can talk about today can bring people health info, but more importantly, hope. And that's really what my goal is for these next few minutes.
This is great, Jordan. I really do appreciate the kind words and truly like you teaching and you and Josh, Dr. Axe talking and speaking and expanding it. Because before, when you had Garden of Life and Josh was having his website and putting information out there, there wasn't many mainstream media that was explaining what you just described about putting the information about how to use whole foods and how to use a biblical diet to actually create health and to maintain health. And I just say that seriously from the bottom of my heart. You guys were on the forefront. I love when I go to a conference and you're speaking. and in no way, Jordan, it has to do with age or life, but they say Jordan's the OG. Like Jordan's the OG, about that. And I'm like, but it's not that's a very big compliment in my word. I'm like, yes, like there's people out there that started it. And when you started the biblical diet, like when you started to implement, how do you see this ancient biblical dietary principles aligning from what we know, like right now in modern medicine? Because I mean, as Rafa already mentioned, you have a new book coming out. You're talking about biblical principles. You're seeing. I know personally, there's so many people have told you like how they've healed through what your teachings and your one-on-ones. Can you touch base and remember, it can go the conversation go where you want it to go. But I love learning about biblical diets.
I think for me, it started with this idea that if I follow a health plan based on the Bible, I can be well. And it resonated with me so much because during my illness, now keep in mind, I was with Crohn's disease. I was 19, 20 years old. I was this immortal teenager. And you just don't think about being incapacitated, losing your ability to be a part of college, be a part of your friends' lives. It was horrific. I describe it as being trapped in a prison that was my own body. And so for me, I tried 69 medical experts and I committed to whatever helped me, I was going to share with the world. And Chris, that's why we see people in our industry. It's so great. You ask a chiropractor, why'd you become a chiropractor? I had scoliosis and I was healed. Why'd you become an acupuncturist? I had acupuncture after a terrible pain syndrome and it's better. Or why'd you become a functional medicine doctor? A lot of people in our space, I would say 50% or more, have healing testimonies. And I bet that's not the case in other industries. I bet people that manage the Home Depot don't say that my life was changed because I laid a floor in my spare bedroom. And I'm not trying to be critical, but you know what I mean? This is a personal thing, health. So for me, I wanted something that I could help other people get well with for what helped me, because I knew how devastating this illness was and how miserable and how embarrassing, because I was in the bathroom 18 to 30 times a day with bloody diarrhea. Imagine telling your 19-year-old guy friends that. I mean, it's just horrific. My parents were miserable because I was degenerating right before their eyes. It was horrible. So I was so thankful when I met a man, the 70th medical expert I visited, who said, Jordan, I can help you get well if you follow a diet based on the Bible. And I didn't know what that meant, Chris, other than I believed in the Bible. And if I could share anything with anybody, how great would it be if it was something that aligned with my beliefs? And I was in a wheelchair at the time, flew from my then home in South Florida to Southern California. And this man, his name was Bud, he's passed on. He said, Jordan, not only are you going to get well, but you're 12 weeks from now, you're going to be working out on the beach. And if you did go to Google Images, you see that after picture. Maybe it's on the front of Nation Heal Thyself book. It's me at age 21. And he had infused faith, hope, and the roadmap really looked like what we would consider today a real food, whole food diet. And I can't even believe I'm saying this, but it's the same foods that Make America Healthy Again is talking about, that the influencers today are talking about. I consumed raw fermented dairy. I consumed heirloom sourdough grains, grass-fed meat, pasture-raised eggs. I had some raw carrot juice with some raw cream in it. And I consumed organ supplements and then this probiotic from the soil. So it was very much a blessing to follow, learn, and teach something that now is finally becoming relevant. And the fact that I can look at the Maker's Diet book, one of my first books that's 21 years old, and not have to change my ideas or plans. And there's bone broth in there, and there's hey, avoid certain types of dairy that contain A1 beta casein. Very amazing, deep information that has not changed, which I'm so blessed. Now, I will say this, just to delineate. I have a dirty dozen list, and it's not based on pesticides like we've heard of with Environmental Working Group. This is from a biblical standpoint, and I do differ with many health experts in that I recommend against consuming pork and shellfish and what people would call unclean or detestable animal things. I don't even call it food. Now, I know that in the real food diet, they say shrimp's great if it's in good waters, or pork if it's grass-fed, etc. I'm not going to go into details on how those types of animals actually are garbage bags, not garbage disposals. And God put them there to clean up waste. And Chris, I know even in your background and heritage, shellfish and pork are celebrated. So I say this because this is what I learned. And I say avoid pork and shellfish and eel and ostrich and whatever. Number two, avoid any sweetener that is artificial. And I would add most sugar alcohols to that list now, but we're talking about pink, yellow, blue packets. Back in the day, saccharin was a big one. My elderly great aunts and grandparents used to put saccharin, whatever it is, sweetening strawberries, aspartame, obviously, which aspartame with NutraSweet, sucralose blend of it. I'm really an opponent of maltitol. I don't even love erythritol, Chris. Like I think
really
alcohols can be a real challenge if you consume them in large quantities, because I operate from a gut perspective. So sorbitol, maltitol, erythritol. And number three, hydrogenated vegetable oils, which now everyone calls seed oils. Those were the top three of the dirty dozen or deadly dozen. Then we got into sugar and unbleached flour. The list goes on and on. So it's a real food diet, but you avoid pork and shellfish, and people would call that kosher, but I think it's beyond that, by the way. It's not a religious thing, although faith is a part of it. Avoid artificial sweeteners and avoid these partially hydrogenated, damaged seed oils. That's going to get you a long way. And the sad thing, Chris, many people who might have accidentally logged onto this podcast had all three of those for breakfast, because if you think about it, people are consuming pork sausage. They're consuming an artificially sweetened beverage or a yogurt because they think it's good for them, and then a muffin that contains damaged, processed vegetable oils, which are not even vegetables. So you get started with that for breakfast, it's diabetes by lunch. And so that really started me on the journey of what I call the Maker's Diet. What's great about the Biblio Diet, which is a new book, and this is so cool, Chris, you're the first interview I've done on this. So the book was just completed. It's going through editing. Myself and Dr. Josh Axe have co-authored it. I'm so passionate about this because there is fresh revelation, even though the Bible is thousands of years old. I don't know how I didn't realize that God gives us the most important meal we could ever eat. I call it the wisest meal on earth. And I know, Chris, you and Josh love traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, and I do too. But there is an entire ancient medicine coming called TBM, traditional biblical medicine. And I'm going to tease it today because I believe it very well could be the answer to cancer. I lay it out in the Biblio Diet. And by the way, the Biblio Diet, there's not even a book that Chris can hold in his hand or me, because we don't even have a free copy yet, but I am going to send you one, Chris, because I want to come back. I'm inviting myself back to share more of it with you when I can. And Josh too. We'll do it separately, but this book is so important to me. And the subtitle, I want you to listen because I'm going right after it. So the subtitle is The Biblio Diet, Live Long, Master Metabolism, Reduce Pain, Fight Depression, and Conquer Cancer with Healing Secrets from the Bible. We're not pulling any punches, making any apologies. We're done with people suffering that we love. And this is our way to help get the world that information.
First of all, I mean, I love every aspect of it. And I'm saying, like, I'm definitely going to have you on here again. If you'd like, I love that you come back. And side note, I think you should have your own podcast because you're such a good orator. So I'm going to keep encouraging.
I've never heard that before.
I know. Yes.
About this, I'll come tag team with you a few times for practice, then we'll see.
Do it. Yeah. you don't need it. You're doing great. And I'm just very thankful. Like when you're talking about that TBM, and your passion with this, there's so many questions, but when you take the biblical principles and like not eating eel, not eating ostrich, and you are seeing that just the basic principles of the Bible, they have huge effects. And that's what I love about the book is that you're talking about it's a mixture and it shows that modern science, I'm not saying science proves the Bible's right. I'm saying that there's this mixture And could you touch in on that? Because like not eating shellfish or something, and you're seeing results, right? Like just your steps, you know that they're going to get people their gut feeling better and such. But that mixture of science, could you just touch a bit on that for me?
Yeah, well, I want to be clear. I want to talk about some benefits of avoiding certain things, but I also want to talk about benefits of consuming certain things. And rather than I'll talk about shellfish and pork this way. Those animals were designed in their physiology and anatomy to store toxins. And I learned a very important word picture related to pork, in that pork essentially spoils from the inside out. Whereas if you look at ground beef, you know how it gets kind of a little off color and gray? Pork's kind of the opposite. Also, pigs are monogastric animals. They have one chamber of a stomach like we do as humans. So do dogs and skunks and cats. Whereas cows, buffalo, bison, because I delineate, I raise water buffalo, so I delineate between the two. Goats, sheep, deer, moose, they all have a four-chambered stomach as ruminant animals. So they can process certain toxins that they get from plants, etc., and make their meat extremely healthy. Whereas I do not believe that pigs or shrimp or mussels can detoxify. In fact, if you devein your shrimp, which you should if you're going to eat it, that's not a vein, that's its digestive tract, and it's gray and black because it harbors waste. If you want to purify a pond, throw a bunch of scallops in there. Now, listen, I'm not suggesting these don't taste good, but they filter and they harbor toxins. If you want to check the toxicity of waters, test the shellfish for heavy metals, microplastics, etc. I'm telling you, folks, if you haven't heard this, give it a try. And I'm saying this with all due respect. There's other fish in the sea, right? I mean, you don't need to consume shellfish or pork. There's other fish, there's other meat. Chris, I'll tell you a little story. And I was very young and very brash after I got well, and you're in your 20s. So I'm in Iowa giving a seminar on biblical health, and I'm speaking extemporaneously, and I start talking about avoiding shellfish, and then I'm talking about pork, and I say pork, and you know the commercial that was going around, you'll know it in a minute. I said, pork's not food. Pork is the other white trash. And the room goes dead silent, Chris. So I realize, so I'm on this tour and I'm like, I don't know anything about Iowa. So I'm sitting there and somebody tells me afterwards, you do realize that you were giving this seminar in an economically depressed area where there's trailer parks, et cetera. And then this is the number one pork raising state in the United States. You just offended everybody. So I didn't know any better back then. But here's the thing. I'm willing to offend you if it means you can be transformed by your health. By the way, beef bacon is amazing. Beef bacon's really good. I'm not going to try to tell you and pawn off turkey bacon as the same thing because it's made out of thigh meat. Beef bacon is made out of the belly, the same part as pork bacon. I have delicious chicken sausage, turkey sausage. Folks, give it a try. I'm not going to tell you that I know exactly what's going to happen, but I believe that the Bible is God's inspired word, and he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if he told his chosen people to avoid those things, you may want to try it as well. I can give you lots of other reasons, but also I'm going to flip over and say this. The Bible talks about bread quite a bit. Jesus was referred to as the bread of life. So how can bread be bad, which a lot of us say too much bread is bad, gluten is bad, if it was a main staple of the biblical diet in the Mediterranean area and still today in certain cultures? And we explain in the book how the process of growing, harvesting, and preparing bread could make it much healthier or less healthy. And like all these processed foods, we have taken shortcuts in our modern processing. We don't allow wheat to sit on, or barley or whatever grain to sit on that threshing floor like it did in biblical times, which it would partially germinate to release nutrients and reduce anti-nutrients like gluten. Then conventional grain is sprayed with glyphosate, which is a terrible gut-destroying chemical. And then they add gluten to it, which is the sticky protein in wheat. so that they can shortcut the process, which in the past would have been akin to sprouting or sour leavening, like sourdough bread. And by the way, Chris, I'm super health conscious with my family. In fact, I don't believe in preaching or practicing what I preach. I only preach what I practice continually, because we've got to stand up to that scrutiny, and we have to be accountable. So
Yes.
I have 6 children, 5 are adopted. 2 of my children were adopted at very young ages, and 3 at a little bit older of an age, 1 at a very teenage. And those kids that are in my care, either my biological son Joshua or my 2 adopted, Samuel and Alexis, at a young age, they've never had a medication. They've never had an antibiotic. They never had a vaccination, immunization, and they've never eaten at a fast food restaurant. Now, it's so funny. We used to drive across the country from South Florida to our farm in Missouri, and we would stop at a McDonald's because they have clean bathrooms, and my kids wouldn't go in McDonald's to use the bathroom. Not because I made them not do it. It's because I taught them the difference between healthy and unhealthy, and that poor health choices create consequences. And I've got lots of stories that are some funny, some touching about that. But when I teach this message, I'm doing it because I believe it can really impact your life. And I believe that if you will internalize this, especially if you're blessed to be in good health, or if you have young children that have yet to be exposed to the toxicity of this world, I want you to raise a healthier generation. And it's critical that we recognize the difference that our behavior can make in body, mind, and spirit. And I'm getting back to sourdough bread. So we don't consume a lot of grains. But when we do, we have this amazing einkorn, which is a non-hybridized form of wheat. It's now mostly produced in Italy, but it's in the Bible. It was an original grain. And we have this 48-hour sourdough bread that's so good with French toast, so good in sandwiches. Because we eat delicious food, by the way. We don't eat twigs, rocks, and berries. I like berries, however. So this sourdough bread, it has nutrients from the probiotic fermentation. It's got a reduced gluten that has its main negative compound called gliadin that is greatly reduced, and it can actually be helpful for most people. Same goes with dairy. A lot of the dairy we consume is from the wrong kind of animals, the wrong kind of cow. It's pasteurized, homogenized, it's fortified. But you can look at that as being harmful, and then you can look at grass-fed, organic, A2 dairy from the right kind of animal. Then you can make yogurt or kefir or cottage cheese out of it, and it is a healing food. So what we teach in the Biblio Diet is not just what to eat and not to eat, but how to prepare food. Because the principles that overarch this book are: eat what God created for food, avoid the rest. Pretty simple. Eat food in a form that is healthy for the body. That's how you grow, raise, prepare, and preserve. And here's the third one. And a good friend of mine, the late Dr. Rex Russell, coined this: don't make any food or drink your idol. And I know people are like, that's ridiculous. We don't idolize food. Oh, yeah? How many of us, and I'm talking about me and my good friends, prepare our vacation itinerary around food? I'm like, I'm a real foodie. I love to eat. I'm excited about I haven't eaten yet today. I do a lot of intermittent fasting, and I'm excited about what I'm going to eat for my first and next meal. I think we need to understand that food can't be a reward for success, and you can't use it to medicate your stress. Someone once told me that dessert is stress spelled backwards. Desserts is stress spelled backwards. And it's funny that we use the same thing, chips, cookies, crackers, ice cream, when we get a promotion, and it's the same thing we go to when we're fired, right? We rely on food for pleasure far too much, although when you see the Biblio Diet and what we recommend you eat, you are going to love it. You're going to be satiated. And remember, the subtitle of this book, we want to help you live longer. We're going to give you a blueprint for longevity, the original longevity blueprint. We want you to reduce stress and pain. We want you to boost your metabolism and conquer cancer with healing secrets from the Bible. And if you're wondering, since the book is brand new, how do you get it? Most people don't like delayed gratification, but the Biblio Diet is on Amazon for pre-order. You can go there and be the first to get your book. But I understand people are used to Amazon 1 day or 1 hour delivery. You're going to have to wait a little bit. But I'm going to share some things with you, even in the next few minutes, that can continue that journey that we've sort of teased in the first part of this program. But I do want you to understand, you're going to love your food. You're going to have a plan. You're going to understand how the body was created to eat, sometimes with periods of rest. We talk about exercise. You may know this from this podcast if you're a longtime listener. Dr. Josh Axe and I both share our near-death experiences, mine with cancer in 2008. It's really the first time I share the story in writing. He's going to share his near-death battle with a spinal infection and how both of us used mindset as medicine, because the Bible says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. And here's the biggest one. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. The words you use, what you say about yourself and others is powerful. It could be medicine or it could be disease causing.
Wow. I mean, that's powerful. And again, everybody out there listening, just keep sending Jordan Rubin, send him quotes saying he needs to start a podcast. I'm telling you that this is great. And it's power over life or death, taking the principles. And I love how you guys talked about mindset. Can you go into that mindset? Like, you're in 2008, you teach in your book about how the diet, it integrates your spiritual health and your physical health. Can you touch a bit on that as well? Because you're talking about this and people are saying, you know, I would say that too, Jordan. Like, if I'm going to get done with a day, a heavy day, some individuals say, well, I just love to go home and get my chocolate. I love to go home and get my glass of wine. But there is some form of, like you say, a mindset behind it. Can you talk about that? Because I know most people out there think, I eat for reward. Most of my patients do, Jordan. You're reading their book. You're reading their minds.
Yep. So you're going home, let me guess, after a long day and having a Shazandra sparkling cocktail, right? Yeah, that'd be pretty solid. Pretty awesome. So two things. One, when it comes to eating and how you treat your body, I really do believe, as the Bible says, that our body is the temple of God. God's spirit resides in us. And I think if you've been called for a purpose, which you all have, whether it's to be a teacher or a doctor or a volunteer of some kind, certainly a husband, wife, son, daughter, parent, your life is too important for you to leave it to chance. And I do think you should look at every bite of food you eat on the lens of, is this going to contribute to me being better at my calling and purpose and being alive longer and being more vibrant for those who depend on me? That's the most unselfish way to look at things. That doesn't mean you can't eat delicious food, because I got to tell you, I can make the best healthy pizza, burger, ice cream. I'm telling you, you can do it all. So that mindset, you have to know that you're valuable, and you have to know that you're valuable for others, and your life really does depend on what you eat. But if you go back to the mindset as medicine, I have worked with dozens, if not hundreds of people with cancer, and definitely thousands with inflammatory bowel disease, children with autism, you name it, all the Lyme disease, the things that we get, Chris, on a daily basis. Even though I'm not talking to 10 people a day, it's definitely several. And when I meet someone with cancer, I can usually tell if they're going to conquer cancer and overcome, or if they're going to be a tragedy within 20 minutes. And that's a huge statement, I know. Like, take that in for a minute. Yeah. But the reason being, think about it this way. When you're diagnosed with a disease, cancer is awful. There's others, I would argue, that are harder to overcome from a physiological standpoint, or harder to coach people to overcome, because cancer is very unique in that it could be a bloodborne illness, it could be a solid tumor, it could be a lesion. And I've got a lot of theories on why we shouldn't call it all cancer. But when you're diagnosed with something like cancer, or God forbid, ALS or something that's degenerative, you're not as much concerned about today. Your mind immediately goes to, how long am I going to live? Or rather, how soon am I going to die? My children aren't going to have parents. I'm going to be crippled in pain. I'm going to lose my hair during chemotherapy. I'm going to waste away. So immediately you have the choice of letting fear come in. Now, Chris, in the book, I share this, and I am proud of it, but I promise you it was God in me and not me. When I was told by my oncologist after getting a biopsy of the tumor during my cancer diagnosis, that there was more to share. So I'm in his office with my wife, Nikki, and he says, I need to go and get my folders and tell you what's going on. And if it was stage 1 and gone, I would have known about it. And in fact, my cancer was discovered during an exploratory surgery, which they thought was a hernia surgery that turned out to find cancer. So they removed something that was cancerous. And then 2 weeks later, they were going to tell me if it's gone or, what type of metastatic situation I was dealing with. So as soon as he said there's more to share, I knew that it wasn't going to be good news. So he left his office, and my wife, I said, Nikki, stand in front of the door. And this is amazing, humbling, and powerful. I got on my face. My face was on the carpet of the oncologist's office. And I quoted Job 121. And Job is a Bible figure who lost everything. He lost his wealth, he lost his kids, and he lost his health. And Job 121 says this, and this is what I quoted on the floor. I'm getting chills because I'm so glad that God gave me this faith. I said, naked I came into this earth, and naked I shall return. It is the Lord who gives and the Lord who takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Now, that's a Bible verse that some have read. But what I feel like I did there is I set up an opportunity for God to fix the problem, not me, because this was beyond me. This was beyond what I could handle, even though I was in some ways trained for this. I'd already written a book on healing cancer naturally prior to this. I'd already helped people navigate cancer and be well, but this was different. And I immediately gave it over to God. And when I got home, I called someone that I write my books with. And I said, Mike, turn on the tape recorder. You can tell how old this was. And I said, I've just been told I have metastatic cancer diagnosis. And if I don't get conventional treatment, meaning chemotherapy, surgery followed by chemotherapy, that I am going to have 100% chance of dying. And I basically went on to share a message that was recorded of how God has healed me. By his stripes, I am healed. And I am going to walk it out in faith. I am an overcomer. I am more than a conqueror. And I immediately submitted to God and committed to beating this. And I not only spoke life over myself during the 40 days of overcoming cancer, but I shut out people in my life that said otherwise. I never went back to that oncologist again that told me I had a 100% chance of dying. He sent me to Harvard to go to the world expert in this cancer diagnosis. After he said to me, Jordan, I've heard about you. What are your followers going to think now? I fired him, and I went on to have joy, have peace. The only time I lost my peace was every 2 weeks I would call a laboratory, and I worked with a lab that would do very sophisticated tumor marker detection because I didn't want to be stupid and I would say irresponsible because I had a family. I just adopted 2 children. I had a 3-year-old son. My wife obviously was concerned. So I ordered 3 sets of lab tests and a CT scan at the same radiology center where I got my first one. And when the lab director would call me with the results, admittedly, I was shaking, literally shaking, holding my phone. And I hate that I wish I had more faith, but most of the time, if I would talk to a relative or a friend, and I only told about 30, 40 people, I didn't make this a public thing with followers on social media. It was a very tight circle. And when he would call me, I would kind of shake, and then I would get great results because I did. I thank God, give me more faith. And even at the end of the 40 days, because keep in mind, I wasn't working with an oncologist anymore. I was doing 12 to 14 hours of physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional therapy every day. And I had the confidence to do it. Thank God I could afford it. I had the knowledge to do it. But when I went to get that CT scan by myself, well, with my wife, she had to drive because there was so much riding on this. And I walked in, and I could remember it like it was yesterday. In slow motion, I was handed this envelope, and I couldn't even open it in the radiology office. I walked outside. Now, mind you, I had likely the same radiologist who did my first prognosis and diagnosis. He didn't know me from Adam. He didn't know if I did chemo and an invasive surgery followed by chemo or what I did, but I wanted it to be objective. And I walk out and I open the folder and I look and I see lots of stuff on the front page. Lesions, tumors, and I was devastated. And wouldn't you know it, because nothing's easy, they put my original diagnosis and prognosis on the front page.
Oh my goodness.
And I flipped through it and I saw everything normal. I dropped my folder. I hugged my wife. I was weeping. And I went and called my dad after that. And my cancer was testicular cancer. And you might be thinking, how does Jordan get cancer? And by the way, let me rephrase that. It's not my cancer. All cancer comes from hell. I don't even want to claim it. But the cancer diagnosis that I had was because as a infant, I had an undescended left testicle. I don't talk about this a lot because it makes people's mind go all over the place. But my dad, being a naturopath and a chiropractor, didn't want to get the simple surgical procedure. He wanted to treat it through homeopathy and supplements, etc. And I didn't realize that this testicle lodged in my inguinal area, so in my groin, all these years. And if you read the research, that gives you a 1,000 times risk of developing testicular cancer because there's no heating and cooling mechanism. It needs to destroy itself, and that was the mechanism of a malignancy. And so I called my dad because he blamed himself, and I called him, and I could barely get out the words, Chris. I was like, I'm cancer, and he just, he wept.
Oh man,
or wept, and I made the 40 best phone calls of my life. Not only because I knew people would celebrate the healing that God gave me, but I also knew that there were people that were concerned about me. They didn't really believe that I would conquer cancer, but they supported me. But I wanted them to see that God is real. He cares about his children, and he will heal you if you align to him. And this was not an easy process. One thing I did, even, Chris, that people hate, is probably the hardest thing. I went through 2 days of writing everything that I could remember from my earliest childhood where I was emotionally wounded or I emotionally wounded someone else. And I'm talking about when I was 8 years old and my little league coach told me that if I strike out again in baseball, something bad's going to happen, or getting turned down when you ask a girl to homecoming dance, or, getting in fights with your spouse or when your parents say things to you that are horrible, because it happens, right? And that emotional healing was just as important. So I want everyone to understand the Biblio Diet is more than just eating sourdough bread and an introduction to what I call traditional biblical medicine. It is a body, mind, soul, and spirit healing, because it's all connected. And Chris, I know several people that are blessed to be your patients and clients. And I know that when you treat them, you believe what I'm saying, that it is not just about what you eat. It's as much about what comes out of your mouth than what goes in. It's not just about your musculoskeletal or digestive issue. It's about a past trauma. And so we try our best to equip people with the tools to reach that balance of healing. And when you do, the dis-ease can go away. And that's how you can live long, master metabolism, reduce pain, fight depression, and conquer cancer with healing secrets from the Bible.
I am totally agreeing with you, brother, about the emotional traumas. I just think it's remarkable that you wrote down those traumas. You wrote down the things that happened in the past. And did that for you? I mean, because people really love emotional healing, they want it. When you wrote that down, did you feel like it pulled more things to the surface? Like when you were writing it down, you started to recognize more, maybe more information was coming to your head about what happened in the past?
I couldn't believe how much came out, even things that I had remembered for the first time. And what I did was, if it affected me, I would kind of rate it from a 1 to 10, like how fresh that is. And I prayed for God to heal that emotion, and I sat on it until I was a 0 or a 1. And there's stuff, man. I mean, and there's things you say to yourself. There's things you believe. And one thing that's really tough for people to pull out is they're mad at God. Mm-hmm. They're mad at themselves. I mean, it's crazy to say people have to forgive God, but they absolutely do. And God's okay. He can handle it. He's got broad shoulders. Now, I know people that have lost children, spouses, and for you to think that you don't question or get mad at God, you're wrong. And I've led people through this forgiveness exercise in the past. And man, people are like, give me a supplement, give me a pill, give me a exercise. Don't make me do this. I've been abused by those that were closest to me. I can't forgive. But I got to tell you, the very person that you can't forgive is the one you need to forgive. I'm getting chills, so I know this is for somebody right now. I'm not suggesting you let someone off the hook who committed something horrible against you. I'm not saying that also that they need to apologize. This is between you and God. And I have heard it said that drinking or harboring unforgiveness that turns to bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting it to kill the other person.
Oh, wow. Wow.
You got to do this. And again, I know we could go in so many different directions. I'm glad we landed here because I always trust God to give us the best information, because the truth is, Dr. Motley, we don't know who's on today. We don't know if someone's listening for the first time or the 100th time, but there is somebody who this resonates with. And you and I cannot help somebody through corrective spinal care, through acupuncture, dry needling, through detoxification, homeopathics, drainage formulas, or fasting without the addition of somebody letting go of the emotional and spiritual baggage that they're carrying around. You need that for complete healing. And we can't do it for you. That's the tough part about what we do, Chris, is we can only encourage you to deal with it. And there are some deep, deep, deep things that are holding you back. And it's literally in bondage. And you can be set free when you forgive others, when you forgive yourself, and when you forgive God.
That is profound. Like when you have those three main areas that you forgive, you're set free. I love when we're delivered from our bondage. And I was looking through your writings, and to me, when you can learn and teach your body, like you're saying, going from a 10 to 1, is that you said you spoke life over yourself. Like you were literally training your body, right? Training your body to speak life over your own, speak life, let God heal you. And so that's one thing that I really, really love about the book. It's about how you exemplify. You need to train your body. You need to put these into practice. And this leads to my next thought. Man, I could ask you so many questions. This is so good. What about when you talk about the mental aspect too? Because we're talking about the emotions, and one of the things I really appreciate about Jordan, everybody that's listening, is Jordan, he trains hard. He puts it into practice. He does things by repetition. I've even heard stories, my friend, about like you got to see his son. His son's like huge. Like he's a football player and he just jacked. And I'm like, good gracious, like you put your practices into repetitive movement. And that's one thing you teach so well. Can you tell people some of your main principles that you like to do when you're talking about mental health, mental toughness? discipline.
Absolutely. I have been told that I am the opposite of a procrastinator. In fact, I have a problem being in the present because I'm always trying to focus on getting ahead of things. So, and it's not because I have this great memory and I'm, wanting to be on top of everything. I do it so that I don't miss anything. This morning I was telling my daughter, and by the way, Chris, if you think my son's a good athlete, my daughter's a better one. But I was training my daughter this morning who plays basketball and flag football. And I said, hey, 2 weeks from Tuesday, I was going into she's like, Dad, do you have to talk about the future while I'm here huffing and puffing and sweating while you're throwing me all these passes? So I don't want to miss anything. Now that can go a little overboard, but I do try my best to shoulder a lot and juggle what I'm called the juggle. And I think, and Josh will say the same thing and has said the same thing. If those of you who are listening to his podcast or listen to Ancient Health in the past, I start my morning in a way that tips the scales to the positive. So I will give you an example. For the last 15 years, I have written down as I go through the Bible, the promises of God for me. And they're amazing. And I call it my daily declaration. And I used to call it Beyond Organic Prayer. It was before, it was in the beginning of a TV program we used to host and at the end. And so I will go through the Bible and I'll find something, believe it or not, even though it's been dozens or hundreds of times, something new, and I'll add it to it. And I say things like Moses at 120 years of age, my eyes will not be dim and my strength will remain. I talk about like Caleb at 85 years of age, I'm going to be stronger than I was at 40. I talk about like Abraham, I'm going to grow wealthy with cattle, gold, and silver. Now, I don't want you to think this is all about, me and making me strong and healthy and wealthy. I talk about my wife and I quote Proverbs 31, and my children who are like pillars carved to adorn a palace. So I quote this. Now, it got so long and I would, some days I'd find myself laboring through it. So I went and recorded it on a voice memo. So now what I do is this morning, as soon as I open my eyes, I grab my phone, put in my AirPods, and I put this daily declaration on, and it goes about 7.5 minutes now. And it's my own voice speaking to me about God's promises for my life. And that is before I rolled out of bed. And my morning routine is pretty significant thereafter. And I say this because there's going to be crap throughout the day.
Yeah.
And it's when I say crap, like literally I'm blessed I live between Birmingham and the Nashville area where you reside. And since I don't go to my Nashville home as much anymore, stuff goes wrong. So we went there 2 weeks ago and apparently the septic was backed up and my son's like, hey, something's coming out of this drain of my shower. And I'm like, oh crap. And he's like, yes, you're exactly right. So my point is, you can't control most of your day, but you can control that first moment. And so I try to, I listen to this daily declaration in my own voice because it's me speaking to myself. I listen to the Bible and I'm a big multitasker. So I listen to the Bible audio 2.0 speed. And then I go make my kids smoothies. I have my first cleansing drink. I go work out with my daughter or my son if he's home from practice. Then I go train my daughter. Then I go to the gym and my wife will be there. My other daughter will work out and exercise. So I'm stacking the deck with positivity, with God's word for me and God's best for me. Now, listen, I may get a phone call in the middle of that saying this broke or that's upside down or can you believe this happened? But I've already prayed. I left this out. I journal every day and I have a Bible verse for the day that I meditate on. Then I have 3 prayers that I write down, or I call them imaginations and prayers. And then I repent for 3 things. I ask for forgiveness of God for 3 things. And this is all in the cloud. Now, I hope the cloud lasts for a long time because one day when I'm gone, I hope to hand my kids some measure of wealth, right? Because the Bible says, blessed is a man who stores up wealth for his children's children. So I think it's important to do that. But the legacy that I want to share is written on my iCloud note. And I want them to see, hey, dad struggled. Hey, dad prayed. God answered. Dad was faithful. I want them to see, Chris, 30 years of journaling, 50 years of daily declaration. And then we end our day at dinner. And again, I promise you this took years to really perfect. But at dinner, we have prayers that we say. We try to take communion very often. We drink a shot of olive oil from a Greek island where we found this really cool orchard, and we quote Acts 1:8, which is about the Holy Spirit empowering us. And so we're trying to instill these habits. Now, I've been accused of being too habitual. And too, you made a point about my son who plays college football. I've been keeping his stat in every sport since he was 5 years old. I get it. That's somewhat overbearing. But I teach my kids every practice is as important as a game. Every warm-up is as important as your workout. And if you don't know where you're going, you'll never, and you don't know where you are, you'll never have a roadmap to get there. So I do it in health, when I coach people, when I write a book, when I build a business plan, and when I look at my children, helping them pursue their passions. And I'm not telling everybody to have 6,500 iCloud notes. Don't. I'm not telling everyone to have a zero inbox policy. Don't. But what I am saying, what I'm answering that I start and finish my day the way that I want to live. And I trust God that what happens in between, I'll be able to handle. And I'll tell you all, even this podcast, I've done a lot of podcast guesting. I haven't hosted one yet. I know I should. But Chris, before I got on this podcast, we had some technical difficulties that we're laughing about. But under my breath, I quoted Acts 1:8. I do it when I speak at an event, when I'm at a podcast, or when I'm with a small group. And that is, I will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon me, and I will be your witness, in this case, in Nashville, Tennessee, and to all the ends of the earth. I do that because I have the skill set and the giftedness from God to do a good podcast with you, Chris. What I don't have is the knowledge of who's listening, what they need to hear, and which part of a book or a journey that will impact them the most. Because if I get on and share with you all about digestive health, but 3 people needed to hear about forgiveness, I'm not aligned with God's plan for your listeners. I would much rather pray, get those chills that I have right now because I know somebody's going to be impacted, than try to do it on my own strength. Because I know I can, because I've done it with repetition. Repetition gets you ready for the main event, the main stage, the game, the last shot, the last catch, the last throw, the last part of your seminar. But if you combine preparation with turning over your life and your moments to God, that's where miracles happen.
That was good, my friend. Brother, that was really good. I was writing down, everybody out there, these points where I'm like, we need to make a reel out of that, because you've got really profound sayings, and I'm saying that I'm learning from this. I'm going to start doing the journaling and doing those things where I listen to my own voice with daily affirmations and daily quotes and talk. This, everyone out there, is just a snippet of what you would get in this book and the Biblio Diet. That's going to be we'll put the pre-order link on the caption show notes, and we'll put that out there. And with this, I want you guys to know that you can go back through his writings and his books, and you'll see so many principles. And you, Jordan, you come in with different angles. That's why I love about how you say you have different quotes and you have different analogies. I love your analogies, and that's why it makes it so tangible and so easy to grasp. So when this comes out, people are going to be able to have a good, basically, footprint of like where to follow. I'm sitting here listening and writing down notes, and I'm like, this was really good. I'm serious, brother. Thank you so much. Please keep coming on. I know you're busy, and I know you like. you're in, you have things you're doing, but to me, like I get so much, I hate to say selfishly, I'm getting so much good information about how to improve my own life. Um, I know that with your writings and with your teachings, you speak to many people, you're working with people, you're putting the information out there. Where do you see with this in your life? I love to ask patients or my guests this. Where do you see it going in the next year or two? Like, where do you want it to go? Like, you're speaking these things. Where do you see your life moving towards? It's already great. I'm just, what do you see your plans are?
Yeah. First, I will say this, and I'm going to say this a little bit jokingly. I am going to be 50 in July, and so I try not to count too many years in the future anymore, even though I'm such a planner and a goal-oriented person.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I have real powerful visions and dreams for the next few years. Part of it involves our regenerative agriculture, because what I love about you asking me my daily habit, I consider habits like seeds. Habits are like seeds. And if you don't plant a seed today, you lost a day of eating and consuming the abundance of what that tree will bring. So it's this great saying, best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today. And I have been blessed in 2019 and 2020 during our time out from the pandemic time period. I planted hundreds of thousands of fruit trees that are now becoming healing material for hopefully the world. And this is the part we're going to do on our next podcast, where we talk about traditional biblical medicine. There's a whole chapter in the Biblio Diet called Biblio Medicine that I bet if you're listening, you have never heard before, because even though it's been there for thousands of years, I feel like God has uniquely given it for such a time as this. So I have real hopes and dreams for this regenerative food forest and our regenerative farms to grow. I'm excited about projects that I'm going to be working on independently and along with great folks like Dr. Josh Ack. I'm going to call you in the next few days, because now I have an idea of what we can do together, Chris. So there, I'll give you a little tease on that. But and obviously it's easy with my kids because they're certain age and what they're involved in. I can think about where I want to see them, but I need to really sow into my marriage, my family, and then what God's called me to, and my mission at large, which is a gigantic mission to say the least, is to heal the planet, feed the world, and eradicate disease. And we're trying to do it on a small scale with our farms and our message. And I see it working. And I'm so excited about what God is doing right before our eyes. So in the next 1 to 2 years, I see a maturation and a growth of the seeds that we're planting. And I do hope that the Biblio Diet can ignite excitement within those who are churchgoers, faith followers, and everybody in between who wants to not only be healthy in their own life and their family's life, but leave a health legacy for the future, so that we never have to hear about all the horrific health statistics today, so that we never need a Maha type movement to get the government to finally be for us instead of against us. I think we're entering into this golden age of health, where what we have been preaching and teaching and following and working for is finally going to reap a harvest. And so I believe in a year or two, if I'm on this same program, we will absolutely marvel at how much has been done and accomplished to see the reversal of disease and to see our children be born and start a healthy life, as opposed to what we've seen the last decade. And that gives me a lot of excitement and hope.
Oh, brother, I'm just excited too, and I'm really like excited about hearing about this food, this medicinal things that you're growing from what you planted in 2019. So guys, everybody out there, we're gonna have Jordan back on when he can come back on, and I'm always open for this. And before we go, my friend, I always like to ask, because when you meet somebody who's smart and you're so intellectual, you write the books. Some people like to know like a little bit about you. So I ask you a couple quick questions. What would somebody wouldn't know about you? I'm like a hobby. Is there some kind of different hobby they're saying, and you tell somebody they're like, you do that? Is there anything like that?
You might say that I'm intellectual, but people used to ask, or we used to ask when we had a new employee at our office, give us your favorite movie, your favorite book, and bucket list item or bucket list location where you'd like to travel. So I'll give you that. My favorite movie.
Yep.
And I got laughed at 7 years ago, 6 years and 5 years ago. Karate Kid Part 1, 1984. Now, of course, it's cool because of Cobra Kai and all that other stuff. But so, yeah, Karate Kid Part 1 is my favorite movie. I love to sing, and I love 80s music. So something else some people might not know about me. We hosted our Ancient Nutrition all-company meeting, and we had an evening called Ancients Got Talent, and myself and a team of people reenacted Summer Nights from Greece, and I was Danny. So I sang the song with the moves. Summer Lovin' had me a blast, the whole spiel. Yeah. So I grew up singing and acting, so I love to do that. And my hobbies do involve largely my kids' sports. I would say this, I'm a big sports fan, and I played some sports when I was younger, but there's no greater satisfaction than watching your child do something that they have prepared for, and watching my kids celebrate in the end zone or make a game-winning shot or perform at a recital or in a play like that. I really think my main hobby is pouring into my kids. And I will say this, my wife is a voracious student of the Bible and prophecy and all these cool things. So she and I get into very deep discussions like we did this morning. So my favorite thing to do with my family, I like to go on walks with my wife or hike, particularly in cool locations. And I like to be in the stands during games and recitals and plays for my kids. And I like to be by their side during preparation because, and I hope my dad's not listening because, I don't want to offend him, but my dad came to one of my games, missed most of my plays, and he wasn't there for me. And I can't imagine how hard that is for him. And I've forgiven him, and I had to during my process because I know he loves me. And when I have a health challenge, Chris, he's the best in the world to help resource me, but in other ways, he wasn't. And so I made it a point to never be an empty seat, even though I turned down speaking engagements and, media opportunities and business stuff. I want to be in the seat for their games and recitals, and I want to be by their side for their preparation. And I'm not going to have regrets in that area. I don't. And I'm so blessed that God has taught me that. But yeah, so I like to sing and dance. Karate Kid Part 1 is my favorite movie. I don't read many books. I listen to podcasts on 2.0 speed like a beast. And I'm believe you haven't seen a lot of this, but I kind of am a goofball and quote Dumb and Dumber far too often. So that's something you definitely don't know about me. And Josh will attest to all that.
No, I love it. I can't. I love learning this about you. I'm telling. We'll have some Dumb and Dumber quotes, me and you, at some point. This is going to be great. And I remember that Colt and Josh, they'd show me like some of the really cool company, everybody out there that you guys did. Like you'd have these skits, and I didn't know you were such an actor. I mean, you were good at it. I was like, wow, he's really good at this. And they're like, yeah, he's theatrical. So everybody out there, we're going to have Jordan back on. I hope you gleaned from this as much as I have. And Jordan, I know that you're busy, man. I really appreciate it, my friend, for coming on here and taking the time out of your day. And everybody out there, we're going to have the link for the book, The Biblio Diet. Please keep an eye out for it. And we're so excited for you, my friend. You're doing the good work, you and Josh and that whole team. I really appreciate you guys so much.
Well, and I think people will appreciate this about you, but I want to say it because I'm here. I didn't mention Josh's day-to-day struggle during his, what I called near-death experience. And I remember Colt Morton, who is the CEO of Ancient Nutrition, Chris, he and I called Josh almost every day to infuse him with positivity and kindness. But you did more than that. You visited and laid your hands on him and helped him. And so just as a friend of a friend, because I think we're really all more like family than friends. I want your audience to know how much I appreciate you. You and I have been blessed to sit together at some conferences and events and not spend probably as much time together as we'd like, but I send you patients because I know how successful they're going to be working with you. So I really appreciate you. Thank you for having me and giving me the platform. And I'm excited for the 1, 2, 3 or more people that heard this episode that are going to have major healing experiences. And I hope they'll write in or they'll comment when they do. So thank you, Chris, for being on the front lines, and so enjoyed spending time with you today.
You too, my friend. We really do. And guys, we basically will put every single thing from all your links and your bios and such there. So everybody check it out. It'll be in the captions. And from all of us here at the Ancient Health Podcast with Jordan Rubin, we thank you guys for listening in. Remember, if you have any comments, send them our way. Like and subscribe. But if you know somebody that Jordan's talking about, those extra people in your life, the 2 to 3 people that maybe you know that need this message, please forward this to them. We really appreciate you tuning in. Until next time, take it easy, everybody. Thank you, Jordan, so much.